And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast. It is our episode 10 recap of Survivor Season 40, Winners at War. What a crazy episode. First, we have the loved ones, and then we have absolute chaos. We're here with our co-host, Jordan Heffler, Ryan Winthrop, and Annie Stoller. Crazy episode. That's all.
Dylan, wait. I have a safety without power advantage. I'm going to leave this podcast. I'll be back next week, but you guys can hold down the forts. I'll be back later.
What a crazy episode. Yeah. What do you think? Because I know the blood's always coursing through your veins, as you like to say.
Yeah, I have no complaints about this. I'm usually not a huge fan of the family visit, to be honest with you. I usually think that the people's reactions are blown out of proportion, but honestly, I could not eat up enough of the families. I loved seeing it, and obviously, insane tribal. The blood is just rushing through my veins. I love it.
Yeah, I'll say the same. I did love the family visit, obviously. It was absolutely wild seeing everyone's children. I think I texted Jordan this, like, seeing Rob and Amber's children, like, those kids are so cute, but it's just so funny. Like, it was a great episode. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time.
It's basically like 4 mini Ambers that they all look just like Amber.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was crazy. First time that not only all the families came, and I know that Survivor has been teasing that in previews all week, but also first time there was no challenge. They just said, go back to camp and enjoy your day. And then when we thought that it was, just when you thought it was emotional enough, just when you thought it was long enough, it was around 15 minutes, the first part, it goes right to the edge. And I'm like, oh, they're just going to like, here's where they put the edge in and be like, it's miserable on the edge. It's miserable on the edge. And then the boat comes up with all their families. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has been teased all week. We kind of heard rumors about this before the season started. I had a feeling that everyone in the game left, edge or not, would still get their loved ones. Yeah, I mean, I think, like, to your guys' points, it was historic. It was really, amazing to watch. And I loved it. Everything okay? You good, Del?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
Not good.
No, I just thought it was really, really great for the first part of the episode. But then as we go on, I'm realizing, okay, we have loved ones, edge of extinction, immunity. We're not going to get to see camp strategy until like 35, 40 minutes in. Tribal's going to be like 5 minutes long. In the end, I feel like we needed a lot more time for this episode. I feel like there was so much strategy happening, and we're going to break it down in this podcast, but we needed at least an hour and a half to figure out what was happening at camp, what was happening at Tribal. Craziness.
Am I frozen right now?
You might be a little bit delayed.
You can't tell?
No,
yes, you're definitely delayed.
I'm good?
You're a little bit.
I always bring the tech problems. I don't know what to say. I feel bad.
I think you're a little bit delayed.
All right. I mean, we'll do the best we could under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries.
So I want to ask what may be a controversial question, but I'm sure a lot of people are thinking it. Do you guys think that the loved ones visit was too long, or was it okay because it was the families? I'm under the impression that with the way, look, maybe we could have had longer in the episode, as you said, Ryan, but the way that all the families came was just such a great historic moment for Survivor. I'm sure it'll be remembered for a real long time, forever, honestly, as long as this show goes. And with the absolute chaos that happened at the end, I think it made up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, though. I feel like it was amazing. I loved watching it, seeing, Jeremy's family walk out, Kim's whole family, Tyson's, Tony's. It was so amazing to watch. Like, I'm usually one that is okay with the family visit. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's sweet to see. But this was like really amazing. And any other season, like, this is the one you want to see because it's just so historic. But again, I just feel like this could have happened last episode where it was the Atom vote. And I would have said, oh, okay, that's fine. But this was just such a fast-moving tribal. I just feel like we needed a little bit more time, honestly.
Well,
yeah, I agree. The family visit was really nice, but I mean, I think looking at how the end of the episode played out, we needed to have a lot more background because I feel like I was kind of just lost in how everyone was voting.
So if you think about it, it would have been, we probably would have had a reward challenge this episode if we didn't have the families visiting. We probably would have had a couple scenes of some minor planning or maybe some idle chit chat at the camp. So I don't think that it was really taking away from that much. It was just half the episode, and we did have a lot going on at Tribal, and I think that we weren't really missing a lot of the background because so much of what happened in the decision making of that Tribal was spur of the moment because of Jeremy leaving. I think everybody scrambled and started to make their plans right off the pretty fresh. So I don't know how much we missed, but yeah, I mean, I definitely could have had more of that Tribal at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to I guess for me it's just that I wouldn't change a thing. I think you guys are all right that this was such a amazing family visit that I wouldn't go back in history and rewrite this out. I think this was such a beautiful part of Survivor history. I wouldn't change it. I just wish we had more time. So I don't hate it. Like, here's the comparison I'm going to make. This isn't like the log challenge on Edge of Extinction where we spent like 15 minutes them going up and down the mountain. That took way too long. This was worth the time. I just wish we had more time. That's
Shout out Camp Rock 2. Wouldn't change a thing.
Shout out Fiji Airlines.
Shout out Fiji
making
Airlines.
it all possible. Got to give them a promo for flying all the families out there.
Who went with Boston Rob's kids?
That's what I said to my family.
Literally, my brother mentioned the same thing.
Was it Parvati's husband? Was it the boat captain? Was it Adam's dad? Like, who was the chaperone for the little Marianos?
I actually have a serious question. I think I texted Jordan about that. I mean, I say serious, but it's not actually super serious. Parv did mention that she met her husband because of Survivor. Yeah. Was he a previous player or was he just like, okay.
He was on season 19 Samoa with Russell.
Okay, gotcha.
Very good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Ryan is jealous you answered that.
What's up?
I said Ryan's jealous that you answered that.
No, I'm proud of him. I'm proud. I'm giving him full marks on that one.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you guys said. Like I absolutely loved the Loved Ones visit, but I was just as excited to get right back into gameplay because it's and I know that they announced this week that the penultimate episode, the episode before the finale, will be 2 hours, and then obviously the finale is 2 hours plus the 1 hour reunion show. So we will get a ton of time then. I just wish that some of these episodes were longer. I do agree. But now we head into our immunity challenge, which is one that we've seen. I feel like I've seen this challenge played out a million times, and I believe Jeff may have mentioned it. Ryan, if not, Ryan could recap anyway. What seasons were this played on? Do you remember?
Oh my God. Oh, every season was. I know it was used at least 3 or 4 times. We've seen this a couple times now. It's a classic challenge. I think both the audience and the producers love it because there's a lot of skill in it, but there's a big element of surprise. Like anyone can drop at any time, so you're never gonna even though Tony was in the lead, you couldn't say until the very end Tony was gonna win because he could have dropped at any moment. Producers love it. I know Jeff loves it. I love it personally. And it's really strategical too because it's like a game of chicken. It's like, do I speed up? Am I going to wait for him to make a mistake? Am I going to go for it? It's a lot deeper than it looks. But no, I loved it. Like Jeff said, though, I definitely think we saw it on 32, which was Michelle's season. I think
we've definitely seen a lot of variations of this challenge, if not this specific challenge. I remember one of the I forget what season specifically. I know they had it where they had to spell out a whole thing, and then there was drama because someone had like a letter that was upside down.
That was Ben.
Yeah. Because he had an upside down U, so that was it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's a classic Survivor challenge. I personally really like it. Can never go wrong with this one.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it was great to see. So and people, again, this is something people may have complaints about. I know that the previous 2 challenges was winner gets a fire token. It was winner gets 2 fire tokens. So I think that in a season where threat level is so important and people may not want to try in immunity challenges because they know it can increase their threat level, putting an incentive like fire tokens, especially 2 of them there, is so great to make sure that everybody's competing at the immunity challenge. And look, this is what a time for Tony to have his first immunity win ever.
Yeah, Tony's first win. That was awesome.
We love to see it, Tony winning a challenge. And I think this actually makes Michelle's decision last week make more sense. If you can get fire tokens this easily by winning challenges, because Michelle's won some challenges in her season, she's very capable of winning. So even if you give up 4 tokens for a flip a coin, you can easily win it back. So I feel like this is giving more credence to the fact that even though you pay 4 tokens, you can get fire tokens pretty easily after the merge.
All right, let's calm down with the easily, Ryan. It's not that easy.
It's not easy, but like you have more chances. Your chances of getting them increase.
I'm with you on that.
Your odds. There are a lot of opportunities to get it. I do understand what Ryan is saying. Yeah, and now Tony has 3 fire tokens. I think that this. Now we'll get into this for sure, but I think that this was the episode that kind of cemented Tony in a major power position, in my opinion. He wins immunity. Everyone's going to him for the vote. You finally got to see Tony in control, it looked like, rather than just kind of sitting back and waiting. And you got to wonder if that is going to hurt him going forward. Is he going to be seen as a huge threat now because he won an immunity? He, did have a major say in this vote. And you even heard a bunch of like people like Sarah and Jeremy. They're like, well, I can't get what I want because Tony, and like that has to make you worried about Tony. But at the same time, he is in control.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it going both ways. I think we saw people, like you just said, they're saying, we can't get a word in. It's Tony's playing, hard now because now he has the power, so he can be more fast and loose, which, it's scary to see because Tony's been playing so amazing up until this point, being under the radar, not getting a single vote. He's been doing really well. And I think that now that he had immunity, he felt a little bit of the power, and I think he was making moves. I think Jeremy was definitely in trouble tonight, as we'll talk about later, but Tony was putting that whole thing together. So I think this is where, because Heff has been saying on the podcast he wants to see more from Tony. I think Heff would agree. We saw a lot more from Tony tonight, which is a good sign. The only thing is we can't have Tony be going too hard because then people will all start turning on him. So we'll see.
Is it too much? That's the question.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm nervous about. It's that like Tony obviously is a great player, but I'm nervous if this is going to be a pivotal moment for him and everyone else on the island to kind of realize that they've been letting him fly under the radar for maybe a little bit too long, just because of his social game. And now that if they see that he is like, capable of winning immunity, they think that'll probably bring him out a little bit more and kind of put a little bit more of a target on his back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to now that we discussed Tony and the power position that he appears to be in right now, let's actually talk about the chaos that went on, how it all unfolded. And it all started out, and I said this on Russell's show yesterday. I have a feeling that Jeremy and Tony, something's going to have to break at some point. I think that one of them is going to end up voting the other one out at some point in the season because the entire season they've been panning back between Jeremy and Tony moments. Even when they were on Zakal split into 3 tribes, there was confessionals where Jeremy's like, Tony's a huge threat. Tony's a huge threat. And then, you had Tony talking about Jeremy. And then you have again tonight which looked like maybe the final moment where a line was drawn in the sand between them, where that talk at the water well, where Jeremy wanted to try to be the leader in the vote, choose who goes home, and Tony was not having it, especially because I have to say I'm very surprised that Jeremy would throw out Sarah's name in front of Tony. Like maybe nobody suspects that they're actually working together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of Cops R Us 2.0 is that Cops R Us 1.0 ended not in a great fashion, and yeah, maybe people are seeing, oh well, Tony and Sarah could rekindle. I guarantee you, we don't see them a lot in scenes together. I think they are purposefully staying far apart to lower their threat level to make sure people don't know they're together. So I think Jeremy, it maybe was a blunder to say Sarah's name in front of Tony in case they got back together, but maybe he really didn't know how close they actually are. But yeah, it definitely could be a little oversight.
And I will say that's honestly like a little bit ignorant on Jeremy's part for not for kind of just like dropping their names out of the blue. I feel like if you're coming in and knowing that they've had some sort of relationship in the past, then you obviously have to be a little bit weary of that. So, I mean, I kind of expected better from Jeremy on that part, but at the same time, we can't really like put ourselves in their shoes because of the paranoia that they, I'm sure, experience. So.
I feel like maybe in the back of his head, he was thinking that he was going to end up playing that advantage all along, and maybe he was going to try to take some risks to, I guess, flip the alliances a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I have a quick question before we keep going with our recap. Where are the live comments tonight? This is a crazy episode, and we need people to get in here. If you posted the link, right?
Yeah, I did. I'll go retweet it again right now. But if you're here, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. If you're here, we would love to hear questions and hear audience interaction. But yeah, I guess to answer Heff's question, Heff was basically saying, do we think Jeremy was going to play it the whole time, or did he get spooked? I feel like it's tough because Jeremy will probably say online like what he was actually going to do, but it could be revisionist history. We don't really know if he's going to just change how he was feeling.
Good use of revisionist history.
Thank you. I feel like you have a point. Maybe he was into it the whole time, but my gut. Thank you, Tyler. Tyler in the chat, my bro. I see you over there. I think that the fact that they showed Jeremy and Sarah both saying twice like Jeff, like that, it made me. And granted, it could be editing, but it made me think that that Jeremy got spooked. That's my perception. We'll get to tribal in a little bit, but that's my perception that Jeremy was like, oh, I'm gonna like push for Sarah to Tony. Tony was very hesitant to it. I'm on the outs with Kim and Tyson. I might leave anyway. I'm not really sure. Oh wait, Sarah's gonna play something. I gotta go.
Yeah, for sure. And so yeah, we had that conversation between Jeremy and Tony, and then Tony was like, well, I know I'm not doing that yet. And then you had Tony talking to Sarah, which was really, really, really interesting because obviously I spoke about before, Sarah was getting annoyed with Tony. Sarah wanted Kim out. Tony wanted Tyson out. It seems like, this was the very beginning part of them planning what to do. But there definitely was, look, if you guys were in their position, would you have rather got rid of Kim tonight or Tyson tonight?
If I'm who?
If you are in the position of Sarah, in the position of Tony.
Tyson.
Yeah, I would say Tyson.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think Tyson's the move here just because not only is he a big social, strategic, and physical threat, but he also has the big advantage from Edge of Extinction where all of them are old schoolers and they're all going to vote for Tyson if he gets to the end. So I see their point. There's actually some strategy I want to ask you guys as well about this. I know voting out Tyson is the move here because, he's a big threat, like we just said, but it's weird. The earlier you send him to extinction, the more chances you give him for fire tokens. In a way, the Edge of Extinction rewards you for getting voted out early. Natalie had 4 tokens for that challenge. And she was the first voted out. Yul was the 8th voted out and had 0. So the game, technically, Edge of Extinction is flawed because it rewards you for doing worse in the game. So technically, if you save Tyson for like a 7th or 6th place vote out, he has less chances to get tokens and less chance to get back in the game. But the problem with Tyson, though, this is the counterpoint, he can just win his way out. So there's really a lot of debate about when to get rid of Tyson, but a blindside right here is not a terrible spot.
That's a very good point, Ryan.
So I was thinking to myself about
I like it.
Kim or Tyson. I feel like Kim's kind of flying under the radar, and I think that what Sarah was saying was not necessarily true. She's like, if she gets to the end, she'll beat us all. I don't know if that Kim has done anything in the game to be deserving of that right now. And I'm not saying Tyson has, but at least Tyson could win immunities to take spots away from people. So that's why I think that it's beneficial for everybody to get Tyson out as soon as possible because he could go on that immunity run.
I think that Tyson's more dangerous just because of the underdog story that he has built up for himself by coming back in the game. That's proven to gain respect from the jury from season 38 when Chris Underwood won. And I think that him coming back from the Edge is definitely a more impressive resume than whatever Kim has done. I guess she won one immunity challenge, but I don't know how much she's done other than that. So I think that's why he's more dangerous. Ryan, I want to reiterate, though, I think that was a very good point.
I can't take full credit for it. I definitely heard it in a couple of I've heard that thought before, but I definitely co-sign that thought. Go ahead, Annie.
I was going to say I will agree that it makes for a great resume, but at the end of the day, if you really think about it, all they had to do is win one challenge, and the amount of people on the island who haven't been voted out have also won one challenge. I mean, I get it is a great story, but I think if you really put it in perspective, all Tyson had to do is win one challenge and beat less people than he would have had to beat if it was on the actual island with, every player. So no, I will say, but it's a great resume point, but also it is just one challenge. And he got lucky that the challenge he happened to win was the one that he would have gotten back to the real island. But I mean, I am on the same page. I think it is obviously a great resume builder too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then we started to see the lines drawn in the sand, 5v5. Tony kind of got spooked out by Jeremy and his maybe denial of what their disagreements, and he thought that Jeremy was a little bit sneaky, was a little bit wanted to control too much, And they got together. It was Tony, Sarah, Sophie, Ben, and Nick who wanted to blindside Jeremy. And then we had the other side. It was Kim, Jeremy, Tyson, and then they were going to pull in Denise and Michelle. Now, I want to point out a few things here. One, good for the chat, which Robbie had told us on Twitter was not working, and now it seems to be. So good for that.
Okay,
Two, remember you were pointing out the Poker Alliance. Well, the Poker Alliance was back this episode when they had that conversation when they were sitting down. It was Jeremy and Kim and Tyson. There's the Poker Alliance right there playing out at the merge, and that was exciting to see.
Yeah,
I did not think of that.
Yeah, I didn't think it would make a comeback. It wasn't mentioned in the episode, but I think we definitely saw nodes of it. We definitely saw that it was coming back. I mean, it's tough because these players are all saying online that, we play poker for one night. I mean, how much does that really mean? A lot, but it's a connection. Any connection that you can get out there really means a lot. So it's a big advantage. And like they said, they were on the outs probably because of that and because of a lot of other things as well. But yeah, I mean, Jeremy, Kim, and Tyson definitely didn't have their one person out there. I mean, Jeremy was close with Michelle and Denise, and Kim was also close with Denise. But, Sophie, Ben, and Sarah are like this. And then Tony and Sarah are like this. And then Nick's on the bottom. You pull in Nick. That's a really strong 5. And then the outside had to pull in their other resources. So it definitely was a lot of moving parts even before we got to tribal.
Can we real quick reiterate the split that happened at tribal? So when Sophie was like, how about we all just go over here? So that was
an
Sophie.
Awesome move. That was an awesome move. I love that.
Yeah. I mean,
cut the whispering out. Let's go talk over there. I love that.
Okay. Well, once we get to tribal, I have a big thought on whispering, but once we can keep going. Annie, just to answer your question, like we said, that was the breakdown. When Sophie pulled her 5 over, it was Sophie, Sarah, Ben, Nick, and Sophie, Sarah, Ben, Nick,
and Tony.
And Tony.
Yeah. Tony, yes. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I just want to also point out that for weeks we've been saying that Kim has been getting an absent edit, and I love that she had that moment. And I'm sure the producers purposely did this because I know that the feedback is that Kim has not been shown that much, where she had that moment where she's like, I'm done with everything going on. I'm done with us being targeted. Let's control this game right now. I have an idol. That was awesome, I thought. Now, again, she ended up playing it the wrong way, but Kim, look, it's unlucky. It was pretty much you got to go with your gut in that situation. Yeah. She went the wrong way, but I love the way that she is kind of taking charge right now. Although she is down in the numbers, she did lose her idol.
You can't put blame on her for choosing the wrong person. Like at that, it's really just a blind pick.
Yeah, but I think it was, she didn't do.
I agree with you.
The wrong person. She had the right idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm just keeping track of the questions in the chat for later because we have a lot to get to.
Yeah, and then getting to tribal council, that was just when you thought you couldn't top last week. We had all out chaos once again, and I did expect this because it was, and they didn't reference it in the episode, I don't believe, but it was rumored to be the last time Jeremy could play this safety without power advantage. So I had a feeling that he was going to play it, especially in such a chaotic moment where it did look like he was being targeted. And what a moment where Jeff said, it's time to vote. And at the same exact time, Jeremy and Sarah said Jeff at the same exact time because they were both going to play something. Great moment. And then, you had the standoff.
All right. Hot take or not hot take? I want to hear you guys and also the chat. The whispering has to stop. Here's the thing.
I will hop in and say, I think the very first time it happened, I forgot what season, when I think it was 36 maybe. This hasn't been a super recent thing. Ryan, do you know exactly I feel like there was one specific season.
Yeah, I'm mad at JT. If JT's not watching this podcast, but if JT or any JT fans are out there, this is why I'm mad. Because when we first saw this was in Game Changers when JT walks over to Brad Culpepper and says, "Dude, I think they're going to vote for you. Let's do something else." And that was history. I loved it. It was amazing. Then we saw whispering, every now and then. Great. Now it's happening every tribal. I think it's a little too much.
It loses the excitement. I think it's just it was great for that very moment, but if it's every time, it's it's getting old. Make up your minds at some point. You have to, if you're in a solid alliance, you have to go into tribal and you can't be second guessing yourself because that's what's going to get to you. And I would love to know how many tribals that people originally went into tribal knowing they were going to vote someone. And if they had stuck with that plan, it would have panned out in their favor. But because they got too paranoid when they were sitting there in front of Jeff and decided to talk to other people, that they ended up like screwing themselves over essentially.
Half, what were you saying? Half?
I see a comment in the chat. What did bottom right just say? I agree with him. That's a very hot take. That's a very hot take, Ryan. I love the whispering. I put it in my Survivor audition tape that I would be the whispering king during tribal. I would be whispering during every single tribal. Like, I don't know, like a week ago we were saying that it made the tribal council so awesome because there was everybody flipping and it was like the most epic thing we've ever seen. Now it's old. I love it.
I will say it makes the alliance like honestly look a little bit weaker if you're walking into tribal and you're still unsure of how you're going to vote and you're still having to just like talk about it in front of Jeff. I feel like that's kind of like, oh, I guess you weren't as sure as you thought he was going to be walking in there. So I don't know. I feel like it kind of is like it makes you look a little bit less like sure of how you're going to vote, and I don't appreciate that.
So I'm on Heff's side here.
I agree with that.
I'm on Heff's side here. I think that the whispering is great. I would keep it, but I understand from an audience standpoint why people might not like it because, you know, normally in tribal you have Jeff asking the questions and then them answering and you get to hear everything going on. With the whispering, you kind of just see, you don't hear what's going on. So unless there was a way to get mics in there to know exactly what was being said, I could understand why people have an issue with that. But in my opinion, let's put this comment up here. Good feature we have.
Yeah, shout out Dylan Taylor.
Really it keeps the audience on their toes. I love not knowing how it's going to pan out. I completely agree with that in my opinion. So I think that's a very positive aspect of the whispering.
Yeah,
good job, Dylan Taylor.
I think it's really exciting. Also, I do want to get to Robbie and Tyler's questions later in a little bit, but I definitely find it exciting. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's really cool to see, you know, we as the audience are going to get blindsided. We don't know what's going to happen. It's really cool. And listen, if we have, let's just say out of like 14, 15 tribals in a season, we get like one tribal, maybe two, where there's a huge whispering panic. I'm okay with that. But when it happens a lot, like every tribal in the merge so far has had whispering. It's getting to the point where like we can't follow along. And you're right, Dylan. If we could have mics, we could have subtitles, and we knew what the pieces were, I would be more okay with it. But when I can't follow who's saying what and what's happening, it makes it confusing and it kind of like leaves us out of it. So again, I don't want it to go away completely, but it's got to happen like once, and then Jeff's got to like shut it down. It's gotten way too crazy.
Here's my defense for that. So if there was not a lot of whispering going on, we probably would have known. And obviously, Jeremy leaving tribal council changed things up. But let's say that didn't happen. We would have known that Sophie's alliance is going to split the votes 4-2 between Tyson and Denise. And we would have known in that instant when Kim played the idol for Denise that it was a bad move. However, it gave us that 10 seconds extra of ambiguity and excitement, not knowing how they were going to split the votes because of that whispering that was going on. And I agree with Dylan Taylor, my man. I love not knowing. It makes me more excited.
I will say, I mean, I think that it does make for great TV, but I think if I'm putting myself in, and this is just my own opinion, but if I'm putting myself in their own shoes, if I'm walking into tribal feeling confident about how I'm voting and how my alliance is voting, and then all of a sudden two other members of my alliance start whispering and I'm not like necessarily included in that, like I'm going to get super paranoid. I think it's also a sign of weakness. Like if I'm on the opposite alliance too, and I see like two people whispering, I'm like, oh, like what are they talking about? Maybe they're trying to flip. Maybe I don't know what they're doing. And I think it's just like, I don't know. I think that shows that they're not confident in their alliance members.
Oh, don't get me wrong. As a player, if other people were whispering during tribal, I would hate it. But as a fan, I'm eating it up.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I do want to get to the actual Jeremy Sarah standoff. Now, the reason why now thinking about it from a viewer standpoint, from us in the moment, I was wondering. I don't know about you guys, but I'm wondering, what if Sarah steals Jeremy's vote and then Jeremy leaves because he wouldn't have a vote anyway? We don't know what would have happened there, and I think that both of them were very smart to try and wait. That's all I have to say. And it was like a woke move because if you're Jeremy, you're trying to get out of there as fast as possible. But Jeremy's advantage is kind of a double-edged sword where, as he was saying, he is kind of backstabbing his alliance by not voting with them. But in a game like this, you just got to make it to the next vote at this point.
Yeah, listen, there's so many moving parts, and I feel like we're going to analyze it now. We're going to analyze it maybe tomorrow. We're going to hear about it in other podcasts and other social media sources. It's tough because I feel like you're right, Dylan. It is a double-edged sword because you leave your alliance or you leave the people that you're voting with on the outs there. But like your own preservation is what matters most. And I feel like Jeremy, was in trouble. We're going to go over, when Jeremy leaves and then when Sophie says something and then the actual vote. But the biggest thing that you have to remember as well is that not only was Jeremy's name already out there with the 5 people in Sophie's alliance, but he told Tyson. Tyson now knows. Tyson could very easily, if he wanted to, and Tyson's capable of this, saying, Jeremy has this advantage. I could vote him out with him not leaving it, and he has it in his pocket. Like Tyson could easily have just been like, you know what, I'm going to hop over with the majority. Tyson did that when it was him, Amber, and Kim back on the original DeCall tribe when they were on the outs. Tyson said, look, I'm going to flip on the girls. I'm going with the majority, whatever to do to save myself. Tyson is known to sometimes stick with his group, but he's known to also act in self-preservation. So if Tyson knew Jeremy had this safety without power, because Jeremy told him before tribal, Tyson could have been like, I can make sure he keeps it in his pocket and I'll vote him out. So I feel like Jeremy did not make the wrong move here. I feel like the editing was showing us by people saying, what do we do now? Was kind of telling us that Jeremy was going to go home. So I think it was the right move to play it, even if you do leave your alliance stuck at tribal.
I mean, they would have been stupid to not vote Jeremy out. So yeah, I mean, the edit says what it does, and we can only kind of guess because I don't know if we'll ever know truly what they were planning before he left. But no, I agree. I think it was a good move on his part. Even though they did show people on the jury kind of being like, oh, he just abandoned ship. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, you're going to turn on like your alliance no matter what, kind of, as much as I hate to say it. So I think it was a good move on his part.
And like we've seen so many times in Survivor, so many things could happen if you just last one more day. So you got to worry about that more than anything else. Now let's talk about the actual breakdown of the numbers, because I know that watching in real time, this was definitely confusing for me, probably confusing to you if you were listening, probably confusing to all of us. It took us a few minutes before we even recorded this podcast to try and figure out which way the votes went. So let's start off. So you have a 5-5 split originally. Then Jeremy leaves and Sarah steals Denise's vote. So now in terms of votes, it's 6-3. So there's nine votes, but Denise doesn't have it and Sarah has 2. So it's 6-3. So what this allows you to do at a 6-3 advantage is you could split the votes knowing that an idol could be in play. Now, as Ryan brought up before the podcast, Sophie knew that an idol was going to be in play because Kim had to give her half of it, I believe, correct? Early in the show. So Sophie knew that Kim had an idol, and smartly, they decided they were going to split votes.
Yeah, no, this is really deep strategy, and I think this is so cool when the majority or even the minority can do a split vote when it's not expected, because it really shows how deep the move is. I mean, I think my favorite example of a really cool vote split was back in Ghost Island when they voted out Morgan, when Malolo basically this is where Chris Noble was on Ghost Island. And then Dom, Morgan, and Wendell wanted to vote out Angela. And then James goes to Malolo and says, all right, we have 4. Now they have 3 because they want to turn on their own. Let's go against them. That was really cool. But the better example of this was in Nick's season when the Davids split their votes between Angelina and John went home. So I think, in summary, a split vote is really cool. But back to this actual tribal. I'm just really excited. But yeah, back to this tribal, Dylan, like you said, it's absolutely true. Basically, the moving parts made it almost impossible for the Sophie group. I'll just call it the Sophie group just because saying all the names will get confusing. But the Sophie group, it made it almost impossible for them to fail this. Now, granted, we need to find out from the official source like where the votes fell. But you guys are right, Dylan, you're right with the 3-3 split, and Hef said this earlier as well. Basically, it's 5-5, like you said. Jeremy leaves, it's now 5-4. Sophie's group and Tyson's group. Sarah steals a vote from Denise. Now it's technically 6 votes in Sophie's group against 3 votes in Tyson's group. Technically, if you do a 3-3 split on Tyson and Denise, and then the 3 of them, Michelle, Tyson, and Kim, vote for one of them, it's impossible to win, because then it's going to be a 3-3-3 split, and then you do the revote and you vote someone out. It's impossible to win. The fact that, and this is the last moving part, and granted, like Dylan said, the fact that Sophie knew Kim had an idol, they had to split. If they didn't know they had an idol, they would say, oh, we'll put all our votes on Kim or Tyson, but they knew that, so they had to split. So that's great strategy there. The last moving piece of this is that the votes did not fall where we thought they were going to fall, because we saw 2 votes on Denise that didn't count, 2 votes on Sophie, and I believe we saw at least 4 votes on Tyson. So that makes me think, why would they not do a safe 3-3-3 split unless I'm missing something? The only thing I can think of is that they either A, messed up or were cocky and said, oh, we'll do a 4-2 split, we're fine, which could have messed up. Or B, Michelle flipped her vote. I think it's very possible that we're seeing a Michelle flip or somebody flip their vote just because they wanted to preserve themselves. That's how I saw all this.
Well, Ryan,
Ooh, sorry, Jordan, you go.
We sound like Jeremy and Sarah.
Yeah, it's Jeremy and Sarah right here.
But Ryan, even so, they should have had at least 3 on Denise. Or yeah, they should have had at least 3 on Denise. Even if they knew Michelle was going to flip, they would have been able to do a 4-3 split if they knew that, if that makes sense. So they should have at least, there was some kind of mistake they made there. It doesn't make sense that they wouldn't do a 3-3 split, or if Michelle did flip, which I am starting to think she did, it would have been a 4-3 split. You following me?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm sorry. I keep checking the Wikipedia page, and I keep checking the Survivor YouTube channel, because at some point, maybe at midnight, at some point, CBS is going to post on YouTube like a 10-second video of like who voted for who. So we're going to eventually find out. I just wanted to see if I could catch it live. But you're right. If this logically makes sense, you have, again, 6 votes, Sarah and her extra votes, which is 2, Ben, Sophie, Nick, and Tony. You should do a 3-3-3 split, and then you're guaranteed safety. So the only reason why I can think of that this didn't make sense is that they either got cocky and they put an extra vote on Tyson, or we saw a Michelle flip. That's the only 2 ways this works out.
I just want to ask, so maybe I'm missing out on something.
Yeah.
So what makes everyone think that Michelle was the one that flipped?
I mean, Annie, you're right. It technically could have been Kim that flipped, or Denise herself. Oh no, these can votes. It could have been Kim. Yeah. You're right. It could have been Kim that flipped Annie. But the only way the math works out is if they either did not do a 3-3 split, or Kim or Michelle flipped, because we saw at least 4 Tyson votes, which did not make sense. Because again, I think we saw this. Oh, go Del.
I was gonna say, how did Sophie only get 2 votes? I would think that Michelle did flip, because otherwise they would not have showed only 2 Sophie votes if there was a 3rd Sophie vote. First of all, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to the audience if that was the way it went. They always, if there's a vote that they leave out, they leave it when it like clinches already that a person's going home. So Tyson so the fact that there was only 2 votes for Sophie means that somebody had to have flipped. And I'm thinking that it was Michelle, because look, I guess Michelle's thinking to herself, I got to preserve as many relationships as I could. And maybe if I know that this is a losing battle no matter what. And I'm going to flip my vote to Tyson just to make sure I kind of just stay in with people, which is a weird thing to do, because things could just change nonstop in this game, especially in such a game as fast paced as this. So I don't really see what the reasoning would be, what kind of relationship she would preserve by doing that.
I was just asking because I was like genuinely curious. I wasn't sure. Like, I feel like maybe it just wasn't like definitely in tune with who was voting for which. So, I mean, it makes sense that she did. I just I wasn't sure if that was definitely her, but it makes sense that she would.
Yeah. And Tyler says in the chat, both A, they wouldn't have had an unread Sophie vote, and B, it would have been way more intense if it was 3 Sophie, 3 Tyson, 1 left. There's no way that Tyson didn't get 5. Yeah, no, it's interesting, Tyler, because they wouldn't have left an unread Sophie vote. It would have been way more exciting if they did that.
Yeah.
But now I'm actually even more confused, because there were supposed to be 10 votes tonight. Jeremy leaves, that's 9, but Sophie steals a vote from Denise. So that means technically there's
still 9, but
it's still 9. So if we saw 2 on Denise that didn't count, 2 on Sophie, does that mean Tyler's right? Does that mean that there were 5 on Tyson? But how does that math work out? That would have to mean the first point I made, that the majority, instead of doing a 3-3 split, they did a 4-2 split, and then Michelle joined them, making that 5. That's the only way the math works out now. Exactly what Tyler just said, 4-2 split and Michelle flip. That's the only way it works out in that case.
Yes.
Can we think of Michelle's I will say I totally agree, but I'm just thinking of why she would split. Do we know the reasoning of why Michelle thought thought that was a good idea? I don't know.
I think there's 2 reasons. Dylan Taylor says it in the chat, actually. Michelle probably flips because she might be working with Nick. That's a very strong possibility. I think Michelle's closest ally in the game, if not Jeremy, is Nick. So she probably wanted to do that. But Michelle probably thought what Heff, Dylan, and all of us were saying, that she's probably assuming, okay, they're going to do a 3-3 split. I can't win in this scenario. I might as well vote with them and self-preservation and keep myself in the loop. That's probably why she did that. That plus Nick.
I'm trying to figure out if what we are saying is true, and it was if they did split 4-2, why did they split 4-2?
Yeah.
Over 3-3. Because if it's 3-3, then there's a tie between Sophie. And there's a tie between, so it would be, if they'd split it 3-3, it would have been a tie between Sophie and Tyson because the idol was played for Denise. And then they do a revote. They have the numbers and they just go and vote out Tyson anyway. So by doing a 4-2 split, you risk the idol being played for the right person, the majority. And then what would happen is Sophie would have more votes than that person who's left if the idol was played for the right person. So it would have been Sophie would have had 3 votes compared to the next person's 2. And then Sophie ends up going home and they get screwed. So I don't know why they did 4-2. It's very difficult to unpack. It's going to continue to get hard to unpack until we figure out for sure the reasonings. But look, there's no doubt that this is one of the wildest, craziest tribals we've ever seen.
And this is why, and someone said this on Twitter, but this is exactly why we needed more than 5 minutes at Tribal and more strategy, because we're breaking this all down. There's a lot of guesswork here. We needed more time.
Yeah, crazy. Heff, what's your take on all this?
I saw a comment in the chat earlier that I actually agreed with. Michelle going home for that move. So I actually agree with that take. So I think that people he said it. He took the words right out of my mouth. I think that you can see someone next episode, maybe like Tony, saying, "You know how dangerous it can be when people in this game are playing both sides," and that's exactly what she's doing. She has a mini alliance that she sort of betrayed, if it's true that she did flip on them, and she's trying to keep an in with a lot of people on the other side. So I think that this move is going to eventually seal her fate, because I can easily see Jeremy or Kim being like, "I don't trust her. I want her out now." Then they go to the other side. Michelle just sealed her fate on that one.
I don't know. I think that her target may have increased a little bit potentially. I don't think she's going to be the next name on the board, but it's certainly possible that she's going to be in trouble from this. We're going to have to see not only where the votes fell to see if we're right, but also what the breakdown will be when they get back to camp. And then before we take some questions, the last part of the episode, as Tyler said in the chat earlier, Tyson flipping off the table was a legendary way to leave. I'm not going to lie. Did you guys remember that Tyson had no tokens? I thought for sure he had 1 token, and he was like, "I'm not going to give anybody a token." And I'm like, production's over there saying, "You have to bequeath the token." And he's like, "I'm not going to give a token. You have to bequeath a token." So I forgot that he actually had 0. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's why he didn't give any tokens though.
Yeah, no, classic Tyson just being funny on what may have been the last time, obviously besides Edge, if he doesn't get back into the game, that could have been the last time we saw him in the game tonight ever. So what a Tyson way to go out for sure, flipping off the table. But yeah, I just want to point out also one more thing before we go to questions, that Kim, if Kim knew that the votes were not going on her, and we don't know if she does know that for sure. If Kim knew that the votes were not going on her, she definitely made the right move trying to play the idol for somebody else. It's just something you have to do. You gotta keep your numbers at this point in the game when it's a 5-5 type of deal. And look, if she plays it for Tyson, then we're having a whole different technically because of the 2-2, it would have been a 2-2 vote.
That's the point. Even still, they were screwed either way.
But it was the right move for Kim to play her idol for someone else. I was just honestly very worried that the votes were going to go on Kim.
Well, I actually don't agree with that, Dylan, because as we previously discussed, the right move for the other alliance would be to do a 3-3 split.
Okay.
So that means that there's no way the minority alliance can win this vote.
Correct.
So Kim, in theory, should have either played it for herself to keep her safe, or she should have just chanced it and not played it for anybody else. Because this is just on paper, this is what should have been done, because on paper the minority alliance had no chance of winning this vote. So that's where I stand on it. I think she should have either played it for herself or kept it and chanced it.
I agree with half of what you said. I definitely agree that she could have and played it for herself, because she did go up to play the idol and she looked back to see who they were. Because usually players nowadays, they do this. They go up to vote and they look back first and they try to read the room and they can see like, okay, who are they looking at? Are they looking down? They try to read who the alliance voted for so they can play it on the right person. So you're right. She could have had an incorrect read and gone home. So she could have played it on herself. But I disagree that she either should have played it on herself or kept it for herself. She has to play it here, whether it's for herself or for her alliance members. Because as she said before Tribal, she doesn't have many allies in the game. She needs as much leverage in the game as she can. So whether it's for herself or whether it's for an ally, she does need it. I don't think that she could have just kept it and not played it. But it sounds like you have a counterpoint.
No, that was me accepting what you're saying, but I don't think.
I didn't know if this was an acceptance or this was I have a rebuttal. So
I accept what you're saying, because like that, if you're using it in the aspect that she would be playing it to save somebody and then have leverage on them going forward, that's fine, I guess. But in my opinion, I would not have played it for anyone else. Just so I probably would have kept it selfishly to go further in the game. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it was just, again, we have to figure out more about the exact way the votes went, what the reasonings were. I would love to hear more theories about that. And I'm going to be listening to stuff all night, trying to figure it out, because that was absolutely wild. And I'm excited to see what happens going forward. But I have to say, it's officially the end, it seems, of Kim and Tony being under the radar, and that's for sure.
The radar is gone. There is nowhere to hide at this point.
Yeah, and in terms of questions, I'd love to open that up to anybody who wants to ask, and we will go forward with that.
While we're waiting for Dylan, because I think, can I click it, or you have the clicking power since you're the host?
I'll click it. I don't know who has the power, but I'll click it.
So
yeah.
while we're waiting for new questions to come in, Robbie earlier in the chat, at 9:38, and Robbie and Tyler had two good questions earlier in the chat while we're waiting for while we're waiting for new questions to come in.
So not sure if you guys did it, have it. Can you guys go over who has advantages left and the fire token update? So after tonight, things definitely got shaken up a lot. Ryan, I know you're the person to go to for this. Do you have that list?
I do have a spreadsheet, actually. Yes, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so basically nothing changed in Edge of Extinction. There was no challenge this time, so that's a moot point. Parvati's the only one with tokens on the edge with 3 because she spent 1 on peanut butter. Basically, Ben still has 1, no movement for Ben. Denise has 3. Jeremy has 2. Kim has 2. Michelle has 0. Nick has 3. Sarah has 1. Sophie has 2. Tony now has 3 after that immunity win, and Tyson got voted out. So that's your fire token breakdown. But yeah, so basically, in terms of who has the most fire tokens in the game, it's Denise, Tony, and Nick, and then Sophie, Jeremy, and Kim are right there. So I was saying this to Dylan earlier today, but I'm glad that the fire tokens are all very close together. We're not seeing somebody have 7 and everyone else has 0. So I like how the tokens are pretty evenly distributed. And
then go over the advantages after what we saw tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So basically we saw Jeremy play his advantage. We saw Sarah play her advantage. And Kim played her idol. So now in terms of idols and advantages in the game, we have Michelle's flip a coin and we have Sophie's regular idol. So 2 advantages / 2 idols, 2 things in the game still. 3 of them got played tonight.
Yeah, and you have to assume that there are next week is going to be another advantages being thrown back into the game kind of episode, I think. And we saw in the preview of Tony being Tony and running through the jungle, and I don't know what that was about. But look, if Tony brings back old Tony and starts to go searching for idols, he's going to need him at this point. There is nowhere to hide. There's no radar. So I'm curious to see next week. I have to say that there's going to be another idol probably hidden to camp. There could be more advantages back in the game, and I'm excited to see that. Mm-hmm. So we have another question here from Dylan. Do you see alliances shuffling after tonight? For example, Kim jumping ship and trying to work with Sophie again. Whoever wants to take this here. Yep.
Yeah, I think alliances are definitely going to shuffle after tonight. I mean, we're in the era of voting blocks and people constantly reshuffling. I don't know if Kim will try to work with Sophie again. She might. I think Kim and Denise are still going to try to work together. I don't see them splitting up. I feel like, Dylan, we're going to see some reshuffling. We're not going to see the whole game board go off, but I think we're going to see, some people try to make new moves. Tony might be more of a target now. Kim might be more of a target now. So we're going to see a little bit of reshuffling, I think.
Yeah, I would guess Kim has to have some kind of contingency plan. But then again, technically they still are only down 5-4 in the votes if lines stay the same. So I think that she could stay there. And if a new idol's in play, you don't know what could happen, or you could just get somebody to try to flip over. So I think it's possible that she could, go and a whole voting blocks thing happens where things start switching around. But I also think it's possible that she stays put and tries to just swing one person over. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, so we had one earlier from Tyler, and I believe Jordan answered this earlier. He said, doesn't that put a target on Sophie's back, though? So referencing when Sophie said, you know what, the 5 of us guys, let's go over here. I feel like it wasn't the right wording. I think she shouldn't have been so bold about it. I mean, Sophie's playing a great game. I still think Sophie's not. I mean, granted, Kim did say, we're going to put our votes on Sophie tonight. So maybe Sophie's not in as good of a spot as she was before, but she's still playing a great game. I think she could have phrased it not as bold, but I think people knew where the lines were. I think the tribe knew word this 5. It wasn't really revealing anything that people didn't know already, but it may have elevated her threat level a little bit. We may have lost Annie.
Yeah,
she just texted me her computer died.
Okay, so yeah, we'll leave it there. Hopefully she'll be back in. If not, then all right, there we go. All right, so do we have
I see a question from the audience. As a man, would you wear a bathing suit on Survivor or just shorts? Yeah, that's actually something I've thought about a lot, Jordan, honestly. So I see a lot of men on Survivor wearing bathing suits. Like Tony wears a bathing suit, Jeremy wears a bathing suit. I don't want to deal with that netting if I'm stuck on an island for 39 days. Are you crazy? I want to wear shorts.
Jordan, you clearly have not been paying attention. Rodell?
Boarding shorts. It's like the bathing suits with the no netting.
I wouldn't want that either way. Just give me the shorts.
Listen, I'm fine with shorts or a bathing suit, but Jordan, if you've been paying attention, all they give the survivors nowadays is that they're all in their underwear. All the men and ladies, they're all in their underwear. I feel like they give them, put bathing suits and put shorts in your wardrobe. And I feel like, I guess if I answer the question, I feel like Dylan has a point. If I have like bathing suits or like board shorts, I guess that works. But like, it seems like all the people are in their underwear. I feel like CBS thinks that we like seeing people just in their underwear. Tyler, do not bring up the Philip pink underwear. I don't need to have any nightmares tonight, please. But yeah, I guess, Jordan, if I had to answer the question, I feel like, I mean, do I have pockets in either one, in the shorts and bathing suit?
The board shorts, you probably don't have pockets.
I'd rather take what has pockets, though. I mean, maybe I'll take the shorts.
Let's go.
Bathing suit. Oh, Annie's back on her phone. Okay.
When I'm on Survivor, I'm going to be wearing a pair of cargo shorts to stick the idol by the thigh. I will be wearing a pair of athletic shorts, and I will be wearing the footwear that is like the webbed toes that Wu wears.
Yeah, if they give it to you, then you can wear that.
What do you mean give to you?
Because like you submit a wardrobe. I think Russell said this too, or someone said this. Maybe Dominic said it. You submit a wardrobe to production, but then they say to you, okay, like this is what you're gonna have. Like you see all these people in what like they wear the same bathing suits and outfits all the time. I feel like they don't have a lot to pick from. So Jordan, if you give them all the outfits you just said, they might just say, okay, Jordan, you're gonna get to wear your cargo shorts and that's it. You don't get anything else. So.
I thought for sure they had a couple different things. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah,
I've got one other question I saw. So let's say the alliance of 5 that won the vote tonight. It's Tony, Sarah, Sophie, Nick, and who else?
Ben.
And let's say Nick and Ben go up to Tony and they say they want to cut out Sarah. Or no, they go up to Sarah and they say they want to cut out Tony or Sophie. Who is Sarah tighter with right now? Who would she stick with?
And Sophie?
Sophie.
Tony and Sophie. Cops Are Us or Sophie and Sarah, whatever their nickname is.
Wait, so the question is, who is Sarah the closest with in the game?
Yeah, if she had to cut Tony or Sophie, who would it be?
Before tonight, I would have said she could cut either one. She could cut Sophie or Tony, but it sounds like from what we're seeing in the edits that Tony is a very, tough partner sometimes to work with, even though he has Sarah's back. Because he technically said to her, Jeremy gunned for you, so I gunned for him. So he has her back, but he's not being as open with her or as like easygoing. So I have to answer your question after tonight. I would say maybe she would vote out Tony before Sophie. I don't know.
I also want to bring up one more aspect here. You don't think that, look, maybe it looks like Tony and Sarah have a great relationship. I'm sure they do, and they're definitely working well together right now, like kind of secretively. But you don't think that it would make Sarah so happy to get revenge on Tony all these years later and maybe blindside him at some point in this game to get back for what happened in Cagayan? If it works out for her gameplay and if it makes sense, I think it's possible.
I think it's possible. I mean, I feel like Sarah...
I agree, actually.
Go, Annie. Go, Annie.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, you were showing her and she was obviously expressing her frustration that Tony was, cutting her off in conversation, not letting her kind of give her input on who she thought would be the best to vote. So I think going off of like how she felt a little bit like frustrated with him, I think going forward she would probably be like, oh, I think Sophie is probably the better person to stick with instead of Tony.
Yeah, and I think Tyler has a good point though, because I think he's saying that she's closer with Sophie and Sophie has an idol that could be used for Sarah. I think because they found the idol together, well, Sophie told Sarah about it. I think Sophie and Sarah, that idol bonds them. I think it makes them close. I think it also prevents Sarah or Sophie from like turning on each other, because then the other can kind of work against them because they have knowledge in their pocket. So I think the idol binds them together. So I do agree that Sophie and Sarah are really close. Sarah, I have to say, I know we said this a lot in other podcasts, but Sarah, I've been very impressed because I like Sarah as a player a lot, but I said coming into the season, she would be one of the biggest threats out there. And she has good connections with Tony, with, it sounds like maybe with Nick, but she has good connections with Tony, Ben, Sarah. I'm sorry. Sarah has good connections with Sophie, Ben, Tony. Like she has really good connections. I feel like she's one of the best connected people in the game. The only thing that could really hurt her is if Jeremy pulls together the outsiders and says Sarah's the biggest threat.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Sarah, do you want to sit at the end next to Sophie, where you could take credit for the moves, or do you want to sit next to Tony, who I don't know if I was listening to something that said, could anybody beat Tony at the end if he were to get there? Obviously, we're going by if Tony gets to the end, he's going to have to start taking control, making moves. I think Tony's going to be extremely hard to beat at the end, given his threat level. If you're Sarah, you want to sit at the end next to Sophie, and I think that Sophie would probably rather sit there with Sarah instead of Tony also. So I think those two are pretty much inseparable at this point, and if they're going to be broken up, it's going to be by a vote.
Yeah, I don't know who Sarah wants to sit next to right now, whether it's Sophie or Tony. I think for sure she wants to be there with Ben. I think she might be seeing Ben as someone she can be at the end for sure. I feel like I have a quick question for you guys. Do you think we are underrating Ben? I know Ben, we haven't seen Ben on the show. I know that he hasn't done a lot in terms of the edits, but Ben's name, other than Adam, Ben's name hasn't really gotten brought up that much, and people seem to like Ben and want to work with him. I'm not saying he's playing the best game out there by far. I'm just saying that, are we underrating how Ben is socially? Because he might be a Final 3 GOAT, or Ben could be someone who has good connections. What do you guys think?
I think on this season, he's a GOAT.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Other seasons, maybe he's playing like sort of like a Tommy-esque game from this past season, which is fine, and that's not really a knock on him. But this season, I don't think you can win if you're just going to play that passively. So, yeah, I think he would be a GOAT if he's in the final 3, pending he doesn't have any Ben bombs coming up.
Any other questions before we dip?
Yeah, I'm looking back at the chat for earlier questions that we missed. Tyler has a good point, though, that we're going to see a new idol in play, so everyone's going to search like crazy. Sarah can blindside Sophie maybe by having her not play the idol. These are all good points. Any other questions?
All right. So looks like we are going to wrap up here. What a crazy episode, and I'm sure that on Twitter we'll be looking feverishly for what were the votes, what was the reasoning. I'll be looking for tons of theories. I think that we tried to figure it out as best as possible, not knowing all the information. I also want to just give a plug to the Ultimate Survivor bracket. If you guys have been watching us with Russell, that's currently in the Sweet 16 right now. Voting is completely open for that round, all 8 matchups. So be sure to vote there. Be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube. Be sure to go follow us on Twitter at Soul Survivor Pod. And I will give a tease and say that within the next few weeks, we may or may not be having a huge guest on very soon.
Maybe.
Huge.
Before we go, I have one last thing. I might have found the vote count, possibly. I don't know if it's official because it's on Wikipedia. I was going to check a few other sources, but right before we wrapped up.
All right, let's hear it before we dip.
We can always put this on our Twitter as well. If we find out later in the night what the official votes are, we can always put it to our Twitter. But what I'm seeing right now is that it was a 5-2. Technically, Denise's votes didn't count. 5-2-2, but technically 5-2-0 votes. So it looks like the Tyson votes were Ben, Sarah, and Sarah. So that's 3. Sophie and Tony. So it looks like they all put their votes on Tyson. It looks like the Sophie votes were Kim and Tyson. And what?
That is wild.
Well, again, I don't know if this is official. I'm trying to figure it out. Sophie votes were Kim and Tyson, which means that the Denise votes were Nick and Michelle. So
wow.
that means
if that is true, that is bananas.
So wait, so that would mean that Michelle was maybe in on it before they went to try. Well, she definitely flipped knowing that to vote for Denise. Denise and Nick voting together does make sense. Then they put 5 votes on that. That's crazy.
If that is the case, tisk on the editors for not telling us that, because if she was not in on it with them beforehand, that is a crazy thing to do.
Oh, did Dylan Taylor in the chat say that? Did he say the 5-2-0? Did he?
Wait, hold on. So I'm trying to think here. If that were to happen, so that would mean that group of 5 didn't split votes at all. Is that correct?
Why would they not do a 4-3? No, because Nick is one of them, one of the split.
Okay. And then, so Nick is one, and then we're saying that it seems like Michelle was in with them, and
why would they not do 4-3 though?
She was kind of just acting like a double agent. And then, wow.
But why would they not do 4-3? Even if they knew that.
I don't know.
That's so weird.
I don't know. We're gonna have to figure this out more. I'm also surprised that they didn't expect Tyson to have some kind of advantage, because we remember that if you do come back from Edge of Extinction, it's in the past you have gotten an idol.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What a development that would be if Nick and Michelle were part of this vote, and they were the ones that went on Denise, and it ended up being a 5-2 split.
Makes no sense. Weird.
Okay, I'm also seeing on the Survivor Wiki 5-2-0 for this.
Oh, wait, no, again, I get it now. It clicked. Okay. If they knew Michelle's with them, then the only people, and Denise loses her vote.
The only people out of the vote are Kim and Tyson.
Right. So then the worst they could do is the 2 and then the 2, which would mean a revote, which would mean they put all their votes on whoever, and then that's
Still, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't they just do 4-3?
I mean, but Dylan has a point, though. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, granted, if you want Tyson, you're going to throw
it's still at minimum they just revote and vote that person out. So it is like the original theory we had with the 3-3, except for they knew that Michelle was voting for her. Wow, so that really does change everything. If that Wikipedia thing is correct, we'll have to get confirmation from Survivor official.
Yeah, I just checked the Wikipedia page. I just checked the Survivor Wikia site. So I just checked 2 different sources. The only source we can trust is when the YouTube page posts they show who voted for who. But Dylan's right, though. I feel like, and then I think Dylan Taylor said this as well. But you have a right point, though. If they knew that Michelle was going to flip before then it doesn't matter because the only ones out of the vote. Well, wait, no, because I guess the one flaw to that is that if they knew Michelle was going to flip, they couldn't have foresaw Jeremy leaving because then Jeremy would have been with Tyson and Kim and they would have had 3 votes. I think it still makes sense. I think it still makes sense where if you have Michelle, you could do a 5-2. It doesn't matter anyway. Even if Jeremy's with them, then it would be. This whole thing is confusing because now you have to factor in. Did they know they didn't know Jeremy was leaving? So you have to factor that extra vote in. Because if Jeremy's still there, then there's 11 votes at Tribal tonight.
Hopefully, we'll have our questions answered next episode. There are too many question marks for us to say something for sure now, which is kind of annoying.
If Jeremy's there, there's still 10, Ryan. It's just a steal vote. So it would be the same number. But
no, it wouldn't. It would be 3.
No. We're saying he said it would be 11 votes. It would still be 10.
Yes, but it would be 3. It would be 3 against that alliance.
No, but okay. So what I'm saying is, it's possible that they just switched one more person over to Tyson when they saw Jeremy leave.
Yes.
But because again, the whole theory about being at minimum they revote, that still holds in this new scenario. It's just that
I hope they answer it in the next one.
With Michelle in that huddle with them, which was really weird, right? Like if she wasn't in with them, maybe Michelle said, I'm going to try and play double agent, and they were fine with that. Really weird that she was in with them in the huddle enough to and then change her vote. So
yeah, that's true. That's true, Dylan. That's right. She wasn't in the huddle, so that had to have meant that she was in on it before Tribal, because then she and Nick would have had to both known to vote for Denise.
Nick must have been keeping her involved, maybe just from an outside standpoint, so that Michelle could play that double agent role. And then, like I said, I still think the at minimum thing holds with the 5-2 if they knew Michelle was truly in with them before. But they all had to know it. Nick probably said in the huddle, like, Michelle's in. I told her to do this. She's just staying over there to get information. That could easily happen.
That's risky. Why wouldn't you just do 4? I don't know.
Because still at minimum in a 5-2, there's only 2 votes over there now if Michelle's with you.
Yeah, but if Nick said Michelle's in, why would they chance it? What if Michelle was playing triple agent and then stuck with them, and then it would have been 3 votes again?
You're
right.
Know what I mean? I agree with that. But they must have been positive about Michelle. That's the only way. You're right.
We need this to be answered in the first 3 minutes of the next episode, where they're like, all right, why was there only 2 votes for Sophie? And she's like, it was me. I was with them the whole time.
No, I mean, and that does make sense. Because I mean, you're right. The 5-2 Dylan works no matter what. I'm just trying to think to myself, if Jeremy doesn't leave, because the only people that knew Jeremy, Tyler thinks Michelle was not in on it. He thinks that she just threw his votes on Denise. But the thing is that the 5-2 works no matter what if Michelle's with you. If Jeremy doesn't leave, and then Jeremy sticks with Tyson and sticks with Kim, and even if Michelle is there, risk having this. Then you risk the split vote fail.
But Jeremy did leave, so they did huddle after Jeremy left. So I think that they definitely changed maybe a thing or two. Okay. So I think that the only way this is possible is that they knew Michelle was in. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to me. Otherwise, they could have got screwed out of the vote if Michelle wasn't with them. So Nick had to have been 100% positive that Michelle was in. And honestly, they've been together this whole game. So, but yeah. I do want to wrap things up and not keep it too long. We will tweet out the official vote once we figure it out. I'm gonna get to it and tweet out that Wikipedia vote right now and see if we can get any people to confirm it or whatnot. But thanks everyone for listening. Looking forward to next week.
Got nothing else for you.
About the camp. Oh, you beat me to it, Ryan.
All right, you got to end. You got to end it. Go.
Grab your torches, head back to camp. Good night.